Okay, I think we're live.
Looks like you're live.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Quorum being present, this meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission for January 12th, 2021 shall come to order. This commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from Municipal Code Chapter 21, Section 56. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve sites, structures, and districts of historical, cultural, archaeological, and architectural significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in Chapter 21, Section 8.06. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed between or amongst commissioners outside the public hearing to determine the disposition of the application. Okay. That's the first item on the agenda. The second item on the agenda is the roll call. Kim Finch is with us. Bobby Collins.
Here.
Will Scott.
Here.
Myself, Tim Leahy. With us, we also have Roberta Lehner, the Chief of Historic Preservation.
Here.
I don't see John Tower, but he might be joining, the Assistant Chief. Also, Joel Braithwaite, our representative from the Office of Law, is with us.
Hello, everyone.
And our recorder is Ms. Tammy Hook. Okay. The commission is authorized to require an oath in order to testify, and this is done en masse. This includes applicants, staff, consultants, and members of the public who wish to enter their comments regarding any applications which will be heard in this public meeting. If you intend to testify, please raise your right hand. This is kind of hard to do when their cameras aren't on, interestingly. Affirm what I'm going to say here. Do you affirm that under the penalties of perjury, that the testimony given in the statements you shall make are true to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief? So those from who are going to testify, please say, I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Next item on the agenda is announcements. Roberta, any announcements for the crowd?
Yes, I have one. You may have read that a contract was awarded to the consortium AMRP to develop City Dock. The project begins with replacement of the Hillman Garage, and our director is working with the development team to schedule a presentation about the project. And I've requested a meeting with the developer to explain historic preservation codes and guidelines and the review process. So we're very early in the process, but staying on top of it.
That's right. There was a presentation, a public presentation in late December, but it was recorded. And I attended that meeting as an observer. And I think it's appropriate that anyone that wants to look at it can. It was instructive in terms of their schedule. Particularly, they would like to have all permits done by the end of this year and be going early in January next year. So we'll be involved. And as Roberta said, we're actively trying to understand or help them understand the process.
And one meeting has taken place so far with the developer requesting multiple documents from the city to help them get started and aid in the design. And at that meeting, team leaders were assigned for 4 different working groups within the city. And the city team leader for design and construction is Michael Johnson, who is Director of Public Works.
Okay.
Tim, was that meeting a city council meeting, or if I was looking for it, what would I be searching for?
I'll send you. Actually, it was sponsored effectively by HA and the City Dock Action Committee.
Okay.
I'll send you the link.
Great, thank you.
I'll send all of you the link.
Thank you.
We would expect them to come for a pre-application at some point, and we we won't be discussing it outside any public meeting. But you're free to attend any of these meetings that are public to keep us educated. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is violations.
Well, it was approval of minutes, but the minutes for December 8th aren't.
Yeah, we
quite
don't have
ready. They weren't
Yeah.
quite ready yet.
Yeah, interestingly enough, that Sherry must have pulled it off the agenda as a result. In fact, we should update the agenda.
Oh,
We
I
have a
guess I
slight-
have an old one.
Yeah, I've got. Yeah, normally it would. I have it on mine too. I said, oh, where are the minutes? Yeah. In fact, we should update the agenda. We have a kind of a new name, violations. We have a kind of a new name under rules of procedure. So I'll get that done. So violations?
Regarding that violations, right now we're working through application details and specs, and all of the current violators have submitted applications.
How many are there?
I don't have a count.
Okay.
But yeah, we are working through applications with several, probably 3 or 4.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent docket, which is a procedure designed to expedite certain applications before the commission. In order to be considered for the consent docket, the application must receive recommendation or approval with minor conditions from all the city staff and the commission's technical advisors. Also, there needs to be no public opposition. As everyone I think knows, the applicant is free to leave the meeting after this. There's Will. Hi, Will.
Yeah, I had to shut everything down, go all the way back to the very start. And anyway, here I am.
Okay, great. The following applications are eligible for the consent docket tonight: 182 Duke of Gloucester Street and 1 Acton Place. So both of these had some conditions. So for those representing 182 Duke of Gloucester Street, are you aware of the conditions that were placed on the application, and do you agree to them?
Jay Schwartz, representing Operating Schwartz and 182, and we've read the conditions and we agree to the conditions.
Okay, great. And also 1 Acton Place. The same question, Jay?
The same with Acton Place. Jay Schwartz with Operating Schwartz. I'm representing the firm in the project, and we've read the conditions and we do agree to the conditions. Thanks so much.
Okay, and they're in the staff report. There was one comment, public comment on 1 Acton Place in support from Historic Annapolis.
Okay, great, thank you.
All
I
right.
haven't seen it, but thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the consent docket.
So moved.
Okay,
Second,
all right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, abstain? All right. Both applications are approved as under conditions, and feel free to move forward, Jay. Thank you.
Thanks
And
so
your
much.
team. All right.
Appreciate it.
Oh,
Tammy, did I miss
Okay,
anything?
go.
Tammy, have I missed anything so far?
nope, you're good.
Okay.
Can I say a word, Tim?
Sure, Will.
I had a lot of concerns about 1 Acton Place, but I was very pleased and impressed to see how thoroughly Roberta and John addressed them, and how professionally and politely Jay accepted them on behalf of the applicant.
If I could also mention that on both applications, I appreciate both Jay and his staff working so closely with us, and also providing an analysis of their own of the guidelines, which is always helpful in an applicant understanding the project and also working with us. On 182 Duke of Gloucester, there are some drainage issues that required a number of changes. And I included the latest diagram of those in the staff report so everyone could understand what the final decision
The final
was
final
on
was.
that.
Right.
And then on Act in Place, we also included a site visit, which was helpful as well. So thank you to ABS Architects.
Well, thanks for all the assistance as well.
Right.
Works both ways.
Great. Okay, thank you. That takes care of new business tonight. Our next item on the agenda. Next item after that is administrative business. We have the 2020 annual report, which was, the draft is in your folder. Hopefully you looked at it, commissioners. It's always fascinating to take a look the year back. Very productive and busy year. So and Roberta teased out a few of the big projects for the year, including the the pumping station.
If it's all right, I'd like to go through the report very
Please do.
briefly because it was only submitted yesterday and the commission might not have had much time to absorb it.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so on the first page and a lot of the second page are just code items. Then there are certain requirements for these reports. So then we had to go through, when you have meetings and meeting notes and the membership criteria, who's a member. And we got sorted out for Bobby at the last minute that you are in fact reappointed.
So it still says I expired last year, but that's all right.
So we have you down for expiring now in 2023.
Yeah, hopefully the new version has been corrected. On the website, it's still not right, but this version of the report should include your reapproval.
So those first two pages are all requirements and the meeting attendance. Then it gets into notable activities, and I wanted to be sure and mention that essentially 1.5 of us, John Tower and myself, reviewed 252 applications last year, even in the midst of a pandemic and still in the midst of a pandemic.
Right.
29 of those at public hearing, more than half on consent docket, and 223 reviewed administratively. And we're also starting to make more note of revisions because a lot of these projects either require more information or some changes from us, resulting in revisions. So we have more and more revisions all of the time. And we're starting to reflect that more. Then I got into a description of what has happened because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and everybody's familiar with all of those details, except that I wanted to be sure and mention how much is involved in creating a virtual meeting. And Mark, thank you, as well for being able to make all of this happen on YouTube. So we greatly appreciate that. But I wanted to be sure and mention all the details involved. And Sherry's taken on the task of, sending out these very detailed, invitations and making sure everybody's emails are on there and so on, and then following up. Then I explained the commission training that we had, which was the ethics training. We always have to mention tax credits, and again, the fact
Very
that
impressive, almost $100,000.
and they've been carried over once again. So anytime anyone in the future has the opportunity to ask for the upper limit to be raised, please do so. Then the rules of procedure, which have been revised after a number of years and many drafts, right? And then I just called out some particular applications. If anyone wants me to add any others, I'm happy to, but the ones I called out were the flood mitigation project and the 110 Compromise Restaurant Project, the 2 works of public art, then the living shoreline.
Yep.
And then lastly, even though this is not a report of the Historic Preservation Division itself, I feel like it's important to note some of the activities that we are involved in the office as well. And so I described the Maynard Burgess House, rehabilitation and adaptive use. And we're very, although you don't see construction right now, we're very much in the middle of it. And we are working at the moment to redesign some drawings to reflect the fact that we're going to leave the second floor and the attic level unrestored so they can be artifacts in and of themselves of a building in an unrestored state, which helps explain the fabulous ability to adapt and reuse materials as a house was expanded and developed. Related to that, also the architectural artifacts in the house, which have been now inventoried. And we had another person help with the inventory by combing through the documents to see what else could be pulled out related to specifically to architecture. So there's a lot of preparation for construction, and then there's also research going on. I see John has joined us. Hi, John.
Hi, John.
And then I ended with a discussion of the enormous amount of time but in particular, John, mostly John, spends providing technical assistance to property owners, and how that's becoming more and more of a challenge with fewer and fewer contractors having historic preservation experience.
Right.
John, anything you want to add to that? I don't know if he's got he might not have his audio on yet. As it, like me, it took a while.
Yeah.
I did not mention city dock planning in this document because honestly, Historic Preservation Division was not included in those working groups. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, we are very much involved now.
Right. Yep. Well,
Any questions?
Do you submit a separate report for the Historic Preservation Division, or does Planning and Zoning submit something? I was under the impression that each division actually submitted something in parallel.
Well, we submit monthly reports, and then information from those monthly reports is pulled to create a yearly report.
Well, yeah, you should definitely put all your activities into ours so they're highlighted. So it's very important, and I appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we submit that. We don't need to vote on this report. It is just a requirement of code that it be supplied every year. If anyone has any comments, please just forward. It's still drafts, so Roberta and Sherry can update it if they need to.
I thought it was very well done and thoughtful, and I appreciate all the effort that went into it.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay. I have one or two items for other business, just very briefly. We touched on them already. It turns out Bobby was reapproved in the September City Council meeting. I reappointed.
She's not our road commissioner.
I was watching, and I don't know how I missed it, but at any rate, that went fine. And we talked about the garage and the city dock plan. It's worthwhile for us getting involved now. There are going to be designs that probably impact existing code, not only for the historic district, I believe, but for other departments. And I think we need to be helpful, but they need to understand that takes time, and we will do what we can. But those code changes actually will need to go through city council. So I'm Roberta and I are actively trying to get meetings so we can make sure we are doing everything we can, because it's extremely important and it needs to happen, obviously. Another thing happening in City Hall through Sally Nash is the small cell tower legislation is moving through the, these are those, 5G or very small, basically look like 55-gallon drums that sit on top of a pole. And we've been aware of this coming for 2 years, and legislation is moving. And Sally and Roberta and I talked about this more than a year ago, I think. The approach was any of those need, any in the historic, any of those applications need to come, their alterations, and they need to come to the HPC. At which point we can take a look at them regarding the efforts they made and how they impact the guidelines. So we'll have a chance to see them as they go in and comment, and they require a certificate of approval. So we'll see. We've seen this in the past. For those of you, they wanted, for instance, to put tower antennas on the side of the Maryland Inn facing down Main Street a few years ago. That didn't pass muster. But now this is a whole new thing where these things sit on top of a pole. And there's other jurisdictions that have legislation and guidelines where they're concealed, and we may get to that, but we'll have to see when we get an application. So just over the next year, we'll probably see that. That's some of the stuff that's been going on in the background. That's all I have. Any other announcements or other business? Yes, Will?
Yeah, I'd like to report out one item and then ask a question of the staff and all of my fellow commissioners on another item. And the item I want to report out is, I don't know how many of you know that there is an ad hoc committee appointed by the mayor to review the maritime zoning. And I am a member of that. And the committee has been working more or less internally at this point and is about to seek public input, and will appear probably in February before the Planning Commission. And it has minimal impact on the historic district and HPC because there has been almost no discussion of making changes to the maritime district within the historic district.
Right.
So I think that's one reason why it may not have been brought to greater attention. Roberta, John, I don't know if you're aware of this that's going on. Yeah, so I think that's why, but it is a bit of an oversight. That's why I reported to everyone tonight. And Roberta, if you should just talk to Sally. Sally is also attending the meetings if you needed to get more confident that it's not going to affect the historic district and to be kept in the loop. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And the other thing is, I've been talking to Lucinda Edinburgh, who is the remaining staff member of the Mitchell Gallery, about projects having to do with the Mitchell Gallery. And it seems to me that the college is moving forward with their plans to renovate Mellon Hall. But Lucinda is not aware of any of that information being shared or discussed with HP's Historic Preservation staff. So my question is, Roberta, have they been meeting with you at all?
I appreciate the phone call you sent today. Now, I apologize for not being able to return your call, and I assume this is related to that. But we had one meeting about a proposed design, very general, with an architect that was being considered, who apparently might also be an alumni.
Yes, I believe he is.
At any rate, there were, I just, even in concept, I expressed a number of concerns, and then it kind of died away when the pandemic hit. And apparently it's being revived because John and I have been asked to attend a meeting January 27th or 29th, a virtual meeting for an update. So I hope to learn more at that time. In the first meeting, many of the guidelines were not being followed exactly, and there were some issues even with height. So I believe maybe they went away and thought about it again, but it was very broad and very general. It also involved moving the house that had been moved already to the college property.
That's complete news to me, which is understandable because that's not directly related to the Mitchell Gallery. But the conversation I had with Lucinda yesterday, she shared a lot of what she had heard just recently from senior staff because it would affect the Mitchell Gallery. And so it's secondhand, third hand, me passing to you, but it sounded like they were just ignoring the historic district guidelines and regulations. And at least two things that were mentioned by Lucinda very specifically seemed to me on the face of it to violate the basic guidelines. And so it's like they're plunging ahead, and I've actually tried to say to the president and to the vice president for finance and development, you've got to go to the staff and don't move forward and invest a lot of college money before you know what the regulations and guidelines are. And that's what they seem to be doing, going forward without consultation.
Will, can you hear me? It's John.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so do you know the architectural firm?
It is, no, but wait. If you want to wait a moment, I'll try to look it up because I think Lucinda wrote it down in an email to me.
Okay.
Oh, I have notes on that. I don't have it in front of me, but I have notes on everyone who was in the first meeting, including the architect.
Yeah.
It's a firm in Washington or Northern Virginia.
And
So I wouldn't worry too much at this point because we did have one general meeting, and I'm hoping that they heard what I was saying, and that we're going to have now another meeting at the end of January. And I'd be happy to report on that at the next public hearing.
We all know how significant.
I know
the
you'll
building
take
is.
care of it.
Yeah. And we all know how significant the building is.
Yeah, yeah. They want to do things to the Mellon Hall itself that I think are in violation on the description, the verbal description I got, which could be mistaken and I may have misunderstood.
Well, we can trust Roberta.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm counting on.
All right. Other announcements, other business, anybody? Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstain? All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll